It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life. From the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators. The famous and not so famous. The controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here is Douglas Coleman.
Howdy-howdy-o. Hey. Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, Douglas Coleman. Thank you for joining us. Blayne Weaver is here today. Blayne is an actor, writer-director, who's got a new film out called Cut to the Chase. And yes, I actually saw the film, and it's quite good. It's got a good twist to it, and Blayne's character is very lovable in an odd sort of way. He's been around for many years doing various acting projects. One of his early works, which I actually just watched a couple of weeks ago, it's called Good Old Boys, and I enjoyed it. It's a Western, kind of a family-friendly movie, Disney-ish, although I don't think Disney produced it. Tommy Lee Jones stars in it and directed it, and it's got a real all-star cast. Matt Damon, Frances McDermott, Sissy Spacek, Sam Shepard, Wilford Brimley, and of course Blayne. A very young Blayne is in this. There's a funny scene where he's in an ice cream parlor with Matt Damon, who plays his older brother, and he's seen licking the ice cream bowl in front of a cute girl who is laughing, and it's kind of a funny scene. So if you haven't seen that one, check it out. It's called Good Old Boys. Came out in 1995. Anyway, so all is well at the Douglas Coleman Show. Hope everything is well with you. We will be right back with Blayne Weaver.
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on the Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
DJC Music and DJC Productions are pleased to announce a brand new website. We have started a listing website for radio show hosts as well as potential show guests. This is a meeting site where hosts and guests can come together. Show hosts can list their show and types of guests they're interested in booking. Potential guests can list their talents, bio, accomplishments, or anything they feel makes them an interesting radio show guest. There are no recurrent payments, only a one-time $5 listing fee. Your listing will stay up until you decide to cancel. Previous guests of The Douglas Coleman Show are welcome to submit their guest listing free of charge. Go to radiohostsandguests.com. That's radiohostsandguests.com.
Acclaimed author of Garden, Jane Yates brings you the first book in a new trilogy, Octopus Pirate. A story of a foundling who has unusual talents, such as the ability to communicate with octopuses. As a baby, he was washed up on an island off the Scottish mainland. An eccentric former nun who lives alone with cats brings him up. He joins a circus and narrowly escapes plots against him. Flees to Cornwall, builds a replica pirate ship that's also an airship to travel back in time to fight real pirates. Get your copy today from Amazon, only 99 cents.
And now...
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat.
Again?
Nothing up my sleeve. Presto! Ooh, don't know my own strength.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
Okay, please welcome my guest, Blayne Weaver. Hi, Blayne, how are you?
Hey, man, it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it. I did watch your movie. I thought it was really great. We'll get to that in a second. I just want to do a little bit of background on you. You are from, is it Bossier City?
It's Bossier City. I'm from northwest Louisiana, so we're really close to, like, say, Dallas, Texas, and really far away from all of the French influences of the state. So what should probably be Bossier, we say Bossier.
Bossier. I thought it was Bossier, but I was going to just try my French and see, but okay.
Well, you'd be too fancy for me, that'd be sure.
The one thing that was interesting on your bio, well, there's a lot of things interesting on your bio, but
the one thing, ouch.
Yeah, one of the many things interesting on your bio
There you go.
was that it says your first acting career job, or began his acting career in high school, with the film The Flood, Who Will Save Our Children, which was a NBC Movie of the Week. This is correct. That's a pretty big first job, don't you think?
It was crazy. It really is. I think about it a lot, really, because it's such a strange fork in the road for me. I grew up doing children's theater in Bossier City, Louisiana, and I loved acting. And when I was about 15, I started driving to Dallas to audition for things. And normally that means a local restaurant chain, or maybe some modeling jobs. But like this TV movie was auditioning all over the country, and I booked it. And when I got it, I had no idea how life-changing it was. But yeah, I mean, I was 17 when I got that, and the movie shot in Australia. So I got pulled out of high school. My mom, who had never left the country before, had to go with me because I wasn't 18 yet. And then I'm there, and I'm the only person in the main cast that isn't A, from Los Angeles, and B, a professional actor with a very long resume. I mean, they were kids, they were young, but they weren't as green as I was. And it really did change my life. I mean, once I had that gig, that kind of put me at the top of the working actors in that region. And it allowed me to get a couple of other really big movies, like right back to back, which set me on the path that I continued on until now.
So how many callbacks did you have to do to get that part?
Well, I almost blew it, to be honest. I did 2 callbacks, and then the director came in from Los Angeles, not just to see me, but to see some of the Dallas talent. And they had paired us together. So me and an actress went in and read this scene together. And again, it's about a flood, so there's lots of kind of crying and screaming and blah, blah, blah. And I went in and read with this actress, and my agent called me afterwards and said, okay, the director thinks you blew it because the actress was really bad, but he really wants you to come back in and audition again. But he'd already left for LA, so I went on tape again and worked with the casting director and just myself. And for some reason, this director believed in me and gave me a second shot. And I'll be honest, you get so few second shots in this business that I really can't believe it worked out the way that it did. But yeah, it was only 3 calls, and one of those was through the graciousness of the director and the casting director.
Well, it was just amazing to me to read that, because there are people who, well, as you know, that have studied acting and have been a waiter for years, waiting for any little part to come along. And it's
Sure.
And they're in their late 20s, early 30s, and blah, 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 nothing ever happens. That seems to be the normal story. But
Yeah.
This one is kind of the unusual story. What were you doing before that?
Before that, I was just being a kid, really.
Just being a kid in high school, yeah.
My t-ball, my soccer, my after school sport was acting. So I would do 3 shows a year with the theaters in the area. I was always doing that from the time I was 5 to 15. So I wouldn't necessarily put it down as I trained extensively, but I'd been on the stage my whole life. So the reason I started going to Dallas is because I wanted to take that next step, and it worked out. I mean, it certainly doesn't mean there hasn't been hills and valleys since then. The flood certainly didn't pave the the highway of my rise to stardom, but it was a start. And I know so many really talented actors who went to college and studied the greats and played Hamlet, and come to LA and can't get their SAG card. And that is a soul crushing part of this business that I was able to sidestep.
It sounds like you've always wanted to be an actor. Was there anything that you wanted to do other than act?
Well, I wanted to be a secret agent for a short time in my preteens. But no, it's something that I've always wanted to do. And with Cut to the Chase, the new movie, I got to fulfill a really infantile idea that I had. Like, I used to, when I was a kid, I loved Burt Reynolds movies, and I loved the fact that he would do his own stunts, and like I just loved that whole thing of the macho actor also jumping out of cars and stuff like that. And when Cut to the Chase, I did that, and it was really cool. It was exactly what I wanted it to be.
Who were some of the people, you mentioned Burt Reynolds, who were some of the other people that you idolized growing up? Like, you said, I want to be like him.
Totally. I loved, Bruce Willis in the original Die Hard movie. As I got older and a little more sophisticated, like what Cary Grant was able to do, or like, Humphrey Bogart in completely different ways, but they're just great alive on screen. It's like they're so enjoyable to watch. And, these days I'm a huge fan of what Robert Downey Jr. does. And, just these actors that are like live wires when they're on screen. And when they say something, it's genuinely a surprise to you.
What about Johnny Depp? Are you a Johnny Depp fan?
I respect Johnny Depp a lot. He's not one that gets my money every time he's in a picture, Okay. It's like, but I'm constantly impressed with how fearless he is. Like, there's not a thread of him that thinks he might look stupid doing something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. The one thing about Johnny Depp that I got to give credit for is that it seems like every single movie he does, he's almost unrecognizable.
Yeah.
And that's not something.
I agree with that.
Yeah, that's not something that a lot of actors can pull off. I mean, as an opposite example, Robert De Niro.
Right.
Is pretty much De Niro in any film he's ever been in,
Well, now though, but don't you think like, Taxi Driver and Raging Bull, or like, Don Corleone, or like these were all different people, but I feel like we know him so well now. And also I feel like he's stopped really stretching, after Cape Fear. I mean, that's just my opinion. I think he's a great actor, but like you look at, I think Christian Bale is amazing at that, at disappearing into something. And
yes, yeah, he's another great one. Well,
I just rewatched that The Prestige the other day, where
that's a great movie.
Such a great movie, and it's a great performance. He does such like subtle, nuanced stuff in it. Anyways, I shout out to Christian.
Yeah, The Prestige. There was that one scene that just horrified me every time with the bird cage collapsing thing. Oh God,
yeah.
That was just the most gruesome thing. And it's funny how something like that can just totally kind of gross you out, sort of creepy like, and yet some of those Texas Chainsaw Massacre and those type of movies, I just laugh through those.
Yeah,
but that
I agree. I think having that relatable, like, oh my goodness, that feeling of this is real, as opposed to this is a show we're putting on. I think that's how you get to the gut right there.
You've got a production company called Secret Identity Productions.
I do.
And let's see, it was with your childhood friend Brandon Barrera.
Yeah,
right.
But Barrera and I grew up together doing theater. And I moved to LA when I was 18, and he moved out when he was about 20, I think. And we were roommates. What you do when you've known somebody your whole life. We're living in LA, and I had done this cartoon that had made me a pretty good amount of money at one time, and we made a short film together because I wanted to get into directing. And so we financed this movie together, and it's called Losing Lois Lane, and it's about Superman being dumped by Lois Lane and being so depressed he can't motivate to save people anymore. And it's a silly, funny
I love the premise.
Short. It's on Funny or Die right now if anybody wants to watch it. But we made that movie together, and it was such a fun time. We had such a great experience that we ended up making 3 more movies together, feature films. And he has been my kind of go-to business side. I'm the arty guy, and he's the business guy. So it's been a nice little partnership.
Well, sounds great. It sounds something similar to Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, kind of.
Yeah, well, I mean, I tell you, I did a movie with Matt Damon when I was a kid, when I was about 19 or 20. I played his little brother, and he was in the process of writing Good Will Hunting with Ben Affleck at the time. And I got to read like an early version of that script. And it was so inspirational to me. I mean, first of all, Matt Damon is like one of the most stand-up guys in this industry that I've ever met. Always, so supportive and, cool. And he was very supportive of me when I was young. And when I left the set of that movie, I wanted to do that. I wanted to write something that I could act in and da-da-da-da-da. So, you're not wrong about that. Damon and Affleck, what they did was very influential to me and what I wanted to do.
What was the movie you were in with him?
It was a cowboy movie called The Good Old Boys that Tommy Lee Jones directed for TNT. So it was a TV movie.
Oh, okay.
Not especially good. I mean, it wasn't bad. It was just kind of boring. Like it's a Western without any guns or anything like that.
A Western without guns?
For me, it was kind of like, again, like that first job that I got, it honestly changed the direction of my life. Like I was in Alpine, Texas, a city that at the time I think had less than 2,000 people in it, in the middle of nowhere, with Tommy Lee Jones, Matt Damon, Sam Shepard, Frances McDormand, Sissy Spacek.
Wow, big names, yeah.
And they had to hang out with me because we were in the middle of nowhere. So they are forced to hang out with this 19-year-old who thinks he knows everything, knows absolutely nothing. And I learned more in that 6 weeks than any other 6 weeks in my life. And I remember having conversations with Sam Shepard and Matt Damon. Matt was asking him about writing plays and what that's like, and I'm like, "Oh, you write plays too?" And Matt's like, "Just shut up and listen. You might learn something." And it's true. It was that was the first time also that I got to be on set with an actor director. So, Tommy Lee Jones was doing that, and like it wasn't weird to me, it wasn't weird to anybody else, and it's like I kind of just thought that I'd like to do that. I'd like to act in something that I'm also directing and go from there. So, again, another life-changing job.
You're not that much younger than Matt Damon, are you?
I think 4 years, something like that.
Yeah,
4 or 5 years.
Say.
But he was way more savvy than me. I mean, like we were out there. I was from Bossier City, Louisiana, and Matt had already made like 4 or 5 big movies. He wasn't a household name by any means, but he had certainly worked more than me and already lived in LA with Ben for quite a while at that point, I think.
Well, speaking of other names you've worked with that may not have been household names when you worked with them, but they certainly are now, was Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Don Cheadle,
Zooey
right?
Deschanel, Don Cheadle.
Yeah,
that was my first screenwriting credit, a film called Manic, that I wrote with Michael Bacall, who's also a very talented writer actor, and basically we were living in LA, going to UCLA. Both studying English literature, and Mike and I met on a golf commercial that we were both acting in, and I'm like, I have this script, maybe you could come on and take a look at it for me. And he did, and we wrote on this movie for like a year, and the whole goal of it was for us to star in it, much like Matt and Ben did.
Right.
I was going to play the lead, Mike was going to play the second lead, and somehow, I'm not exactly sure how, but through his manager representing another director, it got financing, and it was a go, and we were moving forward with IFC Films. And near the 0 hour, IFC said, "All right, look, we're willing to throw this money into it, but we want a name for the main character." So I had this opportunity of either I kill the deal or I take a smaller role, and we get a name for the role that I was supposed to play, and we ended up getting Joseph Gordon-Levitt. So, the joke that I usually make is if you're going to be replaced in something, you should really be replaced by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, because he's really fantastic guy and a fantastic actor, and it's a joy to be around.
The movie I just saw not too long ago with him in was Don John.
Oh, yes. That was his directorial debut, I believe, right?
Yeah, that was a funny movie, but there was a lot of seriousness to it as well. But the premise about this guy who's, kind of a chronic masturbator to porn. And then there's a real serious side to this where he meets the girl who is just a complete controlling bitch. You can kind of see how guys would fall into that trap.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I liked the way it was put together. I liked how it was done. Had a very indie feel about it. Also,
I
Tony
haven't seen it, but
Danza
I'll check it out. I think he's very talented.
Tony Danza was hysterical as the father.
He does get a lot of praise for that. I need to see that one.
Yeah. Oh, you haven't seen it? Oh,
I haven't seen it. No.
Definitely worth seeing. And then we mentioned Don Cheadle. I just saw him in Miles Ahead, which was a pretty good movie. I love Miles Davis. I was always a big Miles Davis fan.
Yeah.
The movie was not what I expected, though. I thought it was going to be more of an autobiographical thing. But it was just kind of like a section of his life. And I thought it was well done, but there were just a couple of scenes that I thought, no, they're being chased driving and Miles is shooting out the window of the car. Like, I mean, did that really happen, or was that was that a Hollywood
question?
I mean,
I have a feeling though that Don has some pretty strong opinions about it. He does have those strong opinions.
I mean, I would think that sounds sort of like something Miles might have done. Miles was a pretty crazy guy in his day, but I've never read that he was involved in a rolling shootout. But anything's possible, I guess.
Anything is.
All right, cut to the chase. That is your new movie, right?
Yes, sir.
And I did watch it. Great twist. Without giving it away. It's difficult on a radio show to talk about a movie without giving it away. So we have to kind of talk around the plot.
Right.
But yes, very good. I liked your character. Your character was a bit reminiscent of Christian Slater, I thought.
That might just be me, too.
Might just be you.
Apparently,
okay.
I'm reminiscent of Christian Slater on occasions.
You've been told that then, yeah?
Yeah, I've gotten that a few times. But yeah, I don't think that's a unfair comparison. I mean, Cut to the Chase is this film noir, edge of your seat thriller about a guy who's down on his luck, and his little sister always bails him out. And then in the beginning of the film, his little sister disappears. And so he has to dive into the underworld of this Louisiana town to try to find her. So it's really about this guy who's kind of a ne'er-do-well, who has never really been a hero in any way. And this is the one thing that can get him to step up, for the first time. And I could see Slater definitely playing characters like that. If you imagine his character from Heathers perhaps suddenly turning and trying to be a good guy.
Well, the character that you played, what the term that came to my mind was a lovable loser. Yeah.
I think that's accurate. I think we really wanted, like I said earlier, I really we thought a lot about the original Die Hard when we were making this film. Obviously, it's on different scales, but what always resonated with me was I'm a regular guy against these crazy odds in this fantastically dangerous situation. And so we always keep that in our minds about trying to keep it grounded and, have this guy who doesn't really belong in this. And, I also like the idea of the down on his luck, can't win for losing guy.
Right.
And that is certainly what Max is.
The character that Christian Slater played, that your characters kind of reminded me of, was the one he played in True Romance.
Oh yeah, that's a great comparison. And
Similar.
Also, what a fabulous movie. I mean, that's a very similar kind of tone that we were going for. Right. Of like, you're in this world where kind of everyone has blood on their hands,
and everyone's after you.
In a way, Max is the least bad guy. And I think True Romance reflects that a lot too.
Right. Well, he had the mafia after him, and then the whole scene at the end, and
Yeah, the mafia, the FBI,
right?
The pimp, wow, what a great movie!
And I like the kind of the ghost of Elvis as his mentor. I thought that was a cool twist.
I mean, leave it to Tarantino to throw something completely, unexpected into the mix that is just like such a payoff. I love the Elvis bit.
So get back to cut to the chase. There was a quick shot of your butt getting out of bed.
Yes.
And I was wondering,
Yes,
was that actually your butt, or was that a stunt butt?
I had a stand-in for that. No, I'm just kidding. That was me. We wanted, this movie to have this kind of tone of fun and sexy and dangerous, and so and kind of it's also called Cut to the Chase. And one thing we wanted it to be is constantly moving, constantly having sensory input hit at you. So on every page there's either a fight scene, a chase scene, a love scene, or something that you're going to laugh at, and hopefully we keep it sexy and fun the whole way through. But yeah, I'm in there too. It's you do get to see a shot of my bottom. So congratulations, America.
Well, you know how it goes. There are a lot of people that'll just, we got to go check out that movie.
Yeah, well, I hope so. It's on iTunes, guys. Go for it.
Simply want to see your butt, for no other reason.
It's a sought-after shot, yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the industry, because I'm always fascinated to hear different answers to this. I get a lot of indie film guys on, filmmakers, actors, and technology obviously has changed the whole landscape of filmmaking. Similarly with music, where people now can do really professional recordings at home, people can do damn good movies on their own without a studio. Mm-hmm. The first question, I guess, is what do you think the major studios have over the indies at this point, aside from the money?
At this point, I feel like the real power that they have is a distribution arm.
Okay.
It's like we have to court our distribution, and it's a constant struggle to keep the marketing message true and keep get it out to the buyers the way you want to. It takes a machinery to do that, which the studios have. Obviously, money is the difference between a huge tent pole kind of film and a small micro budget film. But like I always say that I am a director because of the time that I live in. The fact that I can, I've made, this is my fourth feature film that I directed. And the first one, we used these mini DV cameras that were brand new, and, people were using them, and, Kevin Smith had just become like a household name kind of thing. And we're, pushing the envelope of trying to take advantage of this great technology. And now, like, the technology has come so far in just the last 10 years as far as a filmmaker goes that, I made what I couldn't have done 4 years ago for, I don't think, under $1 million. We did this year for 100,000. That is a huge boon for independent filmmakers and artists. And I'm just incredibly grateful to that it's happening, and that I surround myself with these technically savvy geniuses who can make our movie stand up alongside one that cost $100 million.
Well, that's the interesting part to me, is that it's getting very difficult to tell the difference. Save for Batman or Star Wars or something like that. But if you're talking about a thriller or a romantic comedy, it's really, really difficult to tell what was an indie and what was done at Universal or something like that.
Totally. I think you're absolutely right. And I feel like I have a lot of conversations with indie filmmakers and with people on the whole who kind of talk about like giving a movie a pass because it's indie and didn't cost a lot. And I'm like, no, I think that is untrue. I think you have to, if something doesn't look right, I don't think it's being done correctly. And there's of course a learning curve, but like my team, I would put them up against any big budget team of cinematographer, editors, producer types, because they won't suffer it to look amateur. And that's something that you can certainly find out there if you find the right talent.
So the part 2 to this question, can you tell us what the budget was for Cut to the Chase?
It was $105,000.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Now the question. Go ahead.
We went into it intending to spend less than that, to be honest. Like, I had a big budget heist movie that I had written with Paul Osborne, who's another writer director, and we were looking to follow up my last movie, 6 Month Rule, which was a $1 million movie, with this heist movie that was a $2 million movie, and we kept getting like within a hair's breadth of the money, and then it would fall apart. And I ended up, working on trying to get that money for 2 years. And finally, I was just like, you know what? Forget it. Let's put that on the back burner for now. Let's do something micro. Let's do something really small and messy and guerrilla and see what we can do with it. And we went out. I kickstarted for $20,000. I got a distribution company to come in for $20,000 more. So we were going to just make it for $40,000. And I was lucky enough to be able to keep pulling extra money in, and I'm really glad that we did, because I feel like the movie is much more, what's the word? It's way more polished than my initial thoughts were, But I had so many good people working on it. We got a stunt coordinator that was like working for next to nothing. We got an armorer who had, all of these great guns and stuff to use, and then my editor and DP were just on point. So it takes a village, right?
Well, the question I was going to ask was that without changing the story, if you had 2, 3 million, 10 million, if money wasn't the issue, what would you do different?
Well,
if anything,
I mean, it's a very difficult question, because I really love the movie. And I feel like, I don't mean that in any kind of egotistical way. I feel like as a director, you need to, massage the movie until you love it. Not to say that there aren't things that you would change or do differently, but that you've made this movie as great as it possibly can be based on what you have,
right.
And that you're going to stand behind it. So I wouldn't change anything, really. I mean, if it was on a bigger budget, the scale would be bigger. There would be more extras. There would be, an explosion somewhere in the movie, But for this movie specifically, we wrote the script knowing what we wanted to accomplish, which was this, small slice of life kind of. I mean, it's funny to call it a slice of life thing, but it is. It's like you see pretty much 3 days in this guy's life. And we hit the pedal to the metal, and we don't stop until the finish line. And for that, I don't think this film really would have benefited, from a huge explosion in the third act. I feel like that's just not the movie it is.
Or, what else could you add? You could add a car chase scene, a 20 car pile up.
Absolutely. You could always add these, show the world being bigger. But for this movie, the world is small. It's this small Louisiana town, and this, even the mob boss is on a small scale. He's probably, working for somebody in Chicago and New Orleans. But in this place, he's the mob boss, of a 500,000 person city. It's a small little world. And I feel like that's Max's story. He's not like a highly trained, covert spy. He's a deadbeat gambler.
Right. Well,
you can always use more money. 6 Month Rule was $1 million romantic comedy.
Right.
I can show you where to throw the money, because it's really fun to play with the toys, and I think 6 Month Rule has a very elegant, cinematography, and I love all the art that's in it, and the music. The score is great. The source music that we got is some of these really cool indie artists, but all that stuff adds up, and this story, I don't think needed that.
How many times did Max get the shit kicked out of him in that movie?
Well, that was another thing. Like, from the inception of the idea to do this, a micro-budget action movie is very dangerous for the company. Because, I don't want anybody getting hurt, and so what we did was we built it so that Max really takes the brunt of all of the beating. So, if somebody's going to roll down a hill, it's going to be me. If someone's going to, get thrown against a wall repeatedly, it's going to be me. And then when we brought on our stunt coordinator, who was also played one of the characters, we built in a thing where he gets beat up so that we could pass it around a little bit. But it was really, the decision was initially made from a producerial aspect. But then in making the film, it really became kind of one of the joys, is that Max just gets his ass handed to him in this film.
Many times.
I don't know technically how many times. I think I'm going to go maybe 5 times.
I was going to say 5, yeah.
There are 5 different moments where he's punched at least once. I would say that sounds about right.
Did you do your own stunts?
Yes. Yeah.
Great.
So it was great. It was so much fun. And I mean, it's one of those things like I've starred and directed enough times to know that, like, it's hard, but like the last person that's allowed to complain about it is me, because I put myself in this situation. But like, starring and directing and also being like beat the hell out of, it's another thing where it's like I can limp to the monitor, but I can't limp on stage. And if I can't handle not limping while the camera's rolling, then I should find another job.
Well, did you actually get hurt?
I was really lucky. There was one day when I was chasing Lindy Greenwood, who stars in TV's Sleepy Hollow. So she does these action things all the time. She's great at it. But I tackle her, and when I did that, I pulled something in my leg. There was a time where I get headbutted and I fall back to the ground, and I refused a back pad for some reason, because I'm like, this is no big deal. We're just going to do it a few times. Well, I shoot a lot, so we ended up doing it 12 times. And the next day, I could hardly move. And the biggest thing was, I ran for about 6 hours downtown Shreveport in a pair of cowboy boots with no insoles or anything like that. And I had trouble walking. But no, nothing serious. All these little, I collected a barrage of tiny flaws, tiny little injuries, which I think is the way to do it. Tiny injuries you can hide way better than one big one.
Yeah, a few bruises, but if you have a broken arm, that's going to be a tough one to hide.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Exactly.
So you are a writer, director, and actor. Do you have any preference, or do you just like doing it all?
I really do like doing it all, and I like mixing it up. I love acting for other people. I love writing for other people. But my favorite is getting to do it all together. Like from the beginning of being like, writing the script and making it where we want it to be, to being able to cast the people that I want, and like, place my bet on actors that I love, or, get to take, more famous actors that, have always meant a lot to me and put them in a role of something that I care about. And then also to be able to, have a say in everything on the back end, like aside from constant discussions with my editor and DP of like, approving the poster and, making it really this project that I work on for 2 years at a time. So at the end of it, I can say, okay, this is this thing. This is what I did, 2016 and 2017. There's nothing really as satisfying for me than that. But that doesn't say I don't like doing these jobs with other people. That's also fulfilling in a different way.
Well, a lot of actors have become directors. They started out acting and then they moved to directing. Do you think acting is good training to be a director, or do you think being a director is good training to be an actor?
I'm going to go yes on both of those, but you have to be willing to learn. I think that being on set at any point is educational if you're paying attention. And I think that, I've learned the most from directors about what I don't like. And I feel like that's why, I think there's two reasons, actors become directors. That's very simplistic. But like one is that, you want to have some control. And the other is that, you've seen it go badly and you've been like, man, I wish that I had the steering wheel right now. I've had both of those things, but like I became a director because I so desperately didn't get along with the director of Manic. And like Manic was my first screenplay, and I, so wanted it to be a good experience. And while I stand by the movie, I think the movie turned out fine. It was an awful experience for me. I just knew this is not what I want, and if this guy can direct, I can direct. And so sometimes it's that negative thing of like, well, I mean, why aren't I doing it? Why shouldn't I be doing this if I feel I can tell the story?
It's funny you say that because that's how this radio show got started.
Is that right?
Yeah, long story short, it just came up that I went on a bunch of different radio shows and I thought, well, you know what? I could do that. Yeah. And so I started my own because it was just getting frustrating to go on shows and you'd get on a show and it was like, who the hell is this guy? Why is he doing a radio?
Why is he doing it? And exactly. I was just talking to a director friend of mine who's a new director, but she's a writer, actress. And, she did a short film not too long ago and was constantly, overstepped by her DP, and the director and she didn't agree on the vision for the movie. And I'm like, well, why aren't you in charge? Why would you bring someone else on to be in charge of something that what you want it to be? I mean, like, I feel like it's something that I get approached by people a lot who have never written anything and say, hey, I've got this great idea. We should write it together. I'm like, well, I think what you mean is you want me to write it and then you to take, half of the credit. And I'm like, that's fine, but just say it that way. I think people are afraid to be hung out on their own. It's like you can be a director and not have all the answers to things. I'm a director who I've never DP'd anything before. Well, I hire a DP and we have a very open and honest conversation about things, and then we're doing it together. You know what I mean? But like, there is this thing in the world, but certainly in Hollywood, of like, I don't want full responsibility. So if it goes wrong, there's somebody I can blame. And I don't agree with that. I feel like if it's my thing and I know what I want, then why shouldn't I do it? People are like, oh, don't you want to focus more on the acting? You really should focus more on the directing and not act on it. I'm like, well, whatever. I raised the money. I'm doing this thing. I wrote the script. I know the way that I want it to be. Why shouldn't I do it?
Well, this brings up an interesting idea that we kind of hit on a while ago with this idea now that it's more indie than it's ever been, and technology has brought it to where people can do it on their own. You mentioned Hollywood. Back in the sort of golden age, the big actors all had studio contracts.
Right.
Example, Betty Davis was with Warner's, Joan Crawford was with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. And essentially the actors were the property of those studios. The actor basically had no say for where the thing was going to go. The director controlled the whole thing. They were just living props, basically.
Yeah.
And now, with everything going indie, you can pretty much call your own shots. I guess the first question is there such a thing as a major studio contract anymore? Does that still happen?
I don't believe it does. I believe now it's more, there are definitely people that have deals, but they all have, end points. There's like, for instance, Clint Eastwood is under contract with Warner Brothers, that his next 3 movies or whatever. But like, it's kind of like right of first refusal. Like if Warner Brothers doesn't want to make Unforgiven, that means that Clint can turn and make it with somebody else. Unlike how it used to be, where it's like if Warner Brothers wanted to do a movie with Cary Grant, they'd have to get permission from the studio, even if Cary Grant wanted to do it.
Right.
So I feel like there's a lot more, power of like choice these days. But on the level of this movie, I don't really have to deal with that stuff too often unless it comes to like negotiating with a big time actor, who's busy with something else. Sometimes I have to take a pass, or I had to push Weather Girl for, a couple of weeks so that I could get Mark Harmon back in the day because of NCIS. So that kind of thing happens all the time. But, it's really about how many hours there are in a day. Most actors really want to act. And it's just like whether or not you can make it happen with their number one spot, whether that's a movie or a TV show or whatever.
So you don't run into a problem with you want to get this particular actor, but he's under exclusive contract. That doesn't really happen anymore.
Not that I've ever worked with, not that I've ever experienced. I do get a lot. They're doing a movie, and then they're doing their TV show, and then they're going to Thailand. I get that a lot of like, there's just not enough hours in the day.
Oh, so they're just busy. They're just too busy.
Yeah, and it's like sometimes with indie film, like especially like actors will say, sure, that sounds really good. Well, talk to me, give me a couple weeks because I'm not really sure what my schedule is. And they'll keep pushing you off until you have to do a firm, like I need a yes or no today. That happens every time I'm negotiating, with anyone who, has other options. It's always I have to put a deadline on it and be like, look, you don't have to do it, but I would love for you to, but you have to tell me by Friday. And that pushes people into having discussions with, say, the network that, might be difficult.
One kind of technical question I wanted to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
35 millimeter or digital?
Well, I've never shot anything on 35 millimeter as a director. I would love to. I was literally having a discussion yesterday with my director of photography, and we were talking about how he's working on this indie on 35, and we entertained it for a hot second about doing my next movie on 35, and before we were done with the margaritas we were drinking, we realized that it would be totally cost derivative? No, I can't think of the word. It wouldn't work. It would not work at all with the amount of money we were talking about raising. And that's another thing. As a producer, or as the owner of the production company, rather, you have to think about, like, all right, cut to the chase, $100,000, action thriller. That is a amazing investment. That's a great, movie that should go into profit immediately. However, if we spent an additional $50,000 on 35 millimeter, the look would be fantastic, but it would at least cost $50,000 more. And does it change the financials on it at all? And unfortunately, it doesn't. It just makes it harder for us. And also, if I did direct in 35, I would have to learn some new habits, including not doing 12 takes of things, because I do love to overshoot things because it's served me so well in the editing room.
Well, that was the other thing. 35 millimeter is not quite the same process to edit, is it?
No, it's not. I mean, to be honest, it is kind of now. Like now what they do
they digitize it first, and then
they digitize all of it so that you can use these really amazing, editing platforms. But then you have to pay extra money to have the negative cut to the specifications. So, I mean, it's really like editors aren't doing it anymore, but it's another, this is going to be $12,000. This is going to be, and I bet you it's more than $50,000 now that I think about it, because when you think about, buying the film, dealing with the cameras on set, dealing with the black tent on set, you have to have at least 3 more people operating, and then you have to ship things off. I mean, the cost is so prohibitive. That's the word I was looking for.
Prohibitive, yeah.
There it is. Thanks, everybody. I'm a writer, professional writer. I would love to do it, but I'm not going to sacrifice the chance for my movie to be A, financially lucrative, and B, I don't want to sacrifice the quality of what I'm getting on film because I'm rushing.
Well, and also 35 millimeter, I don't know. I can't see a great difference. Maybe I'm just blind to it, but there's a
I think you're right. I think if it's treated correctly, and this is another thing that, coming back to something we talked about earlier, there are lots of indie movies that don't look anything like film and are just like, wow, this looks like the nightly news. whether it's that they didn't use the correct lenses, or they didn't color correct, or they didn't go to the extra steps of, like, I don't know, adding some grain to it, or there's so many different effects you can put on the movie to give it that cinematic look, and that's very important to me. But to some filmmakers, it's not. They don't care that it doesn't look like film because it's not film, and I get that, but I don't agree. I like the slight distance that you get from the film, with that grain, with that feeling of, it's a movie. It's not so crisp and clean and detailed that I feel like I'm watching, the local nightly news.
I suppose it would make more of a difference depending on what you were shooting.
I believe that's true. Like, for instance, I had a real problem with the visuals of Michael Mann's gangster movie, the Public Enemies, because I felt like it was so pristine, and so clean, in a gangster movie, which to me is a, America cinema icon, right? I don't like that I can see Johnny Depp's makeup line, I don't like that, it's just too crisp to me. But, again, artists disagree on this stuff all the time, so that's just my opinion. I think Michael Mann's a genius. I just disagree with that, that decision. It took me out of it.
So what are you working on now? What's your latest project?
Now, I think what's exciting is I've been saying this for about a year, that, like, I've got these 3 projects that I'm juggling and trying to decide which direction to go. I've got a horror film that would be shot back in Louisiana. I've got a comedy that would be shot in LA, and I have this heist movie that would probably be shot in both places. But I've decided this week that I'm going to move forward with this relationship comedy in Los Angeles. And it doesn't have a name yet, of course. I'm horrible at naming things. But yeah, it's a rom-com. But I'm very excited about it, and I love that I'm able to start moving forward and stop, just going back and forth about what the best use of my time is. I think it's this movie.
Okay. Well, this is the last question, then we got to kind of wrap up the interview.
Okay.
Who do you want to work with? If you could work with anybody that you haven't worked with yet.
Oh, wow. There's so many people. That's so not fair.
Oh, no. You got to pick one. Got to pick one.
I got to pick one. Oh, man. Who would I like to work with? Jeez. All right. You've got me on the spot. It's too hard. I can't think of it. I'd love to work with Steven Spielberg, because I feel like he surrounds himself with people that he trusts and likes, and also runs a really good set, and I think I could learn a lot from working with him for a day or two.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a second chance, because I was thinking actors. So
actors.
So Steven Spielberg for producing or directing, but for an actor that you want to act with.
Oh, wow. All right. This is, I don't know. I can't think of anybody that's perfect. I mean, I said before, I love Robert Downey Jr. I love Jessica Chastain. I love, oh my God, there's so many out there. Let's go with Jessica Chastain. I like her. I think she doesn't work enough on things that I like. I want her to work on things that I like. You know what I mean? You ever feel that about an actor? It's like, I feel like kind of about Johnny Depp. I'm like, I really like Johnny Depp. I wish he would do more movies I was interested in seeing, Yeah. Because I'm not really big on the pirates thing, and it's like I loved what he did in Public Enemies and didn't like the way it looked. You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, I'll go with her today. Why not?
The one that he did that I really liked, that I wanted to see more of that type of movie, was, and the title of the movie is escaping me, but it co-starred Angelina Jolie.
Angelina Jolie. Oh, right. Wait. No, I've lost it. I don't know. I didn't see it. I can tell you that.
They were on a train, and it was kind of a mystery thing where she was actually his wife, but he had surgery or some weird thing, because he was.
And this is a movie that you really liked his performance in?
Yeah, I really did like it. I think. It's called The Tourist. I think it's called The Tourist.
Right, I remember that. All right, cool.
Yeah, so I mean, like, that is different than Edward Scissorhands, and
it is.
Yeah, totally.
It is. I would totally check that out.
Right. See, I like him more in the human things instead of the surreal things. But
Yeah. And again, they have their place, you know? It's just not it's not the thing that, like, I haven't seen the Alice in Wonderland series. This conversation is making me feel like I haven't seen anything. I have seen a lot of movies, just not most of the ones we've discussed today.
Well, you've been too busy making movies to sit down and watch movies.
Thank you very much. That is a perfect answer, and I will memorize that for next time.
Well, Blayne, we've got to wrap this up. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and I did enjoy your movie very much.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. It's available right now on iTunes and Google Play and Vudu, all that stuff. You can go to cuttothechasefilm.com to get links to all that.
All right. How's it doing?
It's doing great. We keep moving up the charts on iTunes and whatnot, and the response from countrywide has been really great. So
Super.
We're coming out on DVD August 7th, and we'll be pushing that again soon.
How is the DVD market these days?
You know what? When I see, I'll let you know. It's, you know, I feel like it changes so much. Like, 6-month rule was 4 years ago, and we had a heck of a time with our DVD distributor and dealing with, you know, money being paid and all that stuff. And this time, our distributor is a dream. So it's like, okay, well, hopefully the whole process goes like this. But I'm really glad that, like, I wasn't even sure with this film if there would be a DVD option. Because last time it was just so not important to anybody except for the filmmakers, you know. And now it seems to really have a place again, but it's a very niche place. So I mean, distributor was interested. Distributor wanted DVD. Our DVD has tons of extras and interviews and behind the scenes shenanigans, which is really fun. So for the filmmaker, I love creating those things because it's kind of almost like a scrap album of the experience. And you know, hopefully people will like it. But at the end of the day, I'll get to put it on my shelf and be like, I made another movie.
Well, yeah, you got something to hold on to. It's like, you know, musicians don't make a lot of CDs anymore because everybody wants to do download. But it's nice when you have a case and, you know, something you can hold, something you can read the notes on the back and stuff.
I think it's important, but then again, I'm the kind of guy that still buys books. You know, I want to put them on the shelf. I'm like, I read that book. I like that book. There it is. I can look at it and be reminded how much I like that book.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. The one thing about the DVD, just real quick, is I did talk to another indie filmmaker, and I asked him the same question about DVD, and he said, if you can get your DVD at Walmart, you'll do very well. Mm-hmm. Because you know, they still sell a lot of DVDs at Walmart for some reason.
That is what we're working on right now. Basically, what happens is the distributor gets the thing created and gets it, you know, onto a place where the buyers for, say, Walmart, Kmart, Redbox, all those guys can go and access it, and then they pitch it. So, you know, hopefully, you know, the problem is Walmart is a very uphill battle for an indie film, but it is the dream because they buy 50,000 DVDs at a time for all over the country. So, like, that's what you aim for. I feel like this movie is perfect for Redbox, so I'm really hoping that Redbox responds. But yeah, there are all these little places where you make most of the money, and it's very important to, you know, dot your I's and cross your T's and make sure that you're ready, you know, if you get called up to the big leagues.
All right, Blayne, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a pleasure talking to you. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you, and we'll talk again on the next one, I hope.
Oh, definitely. I'd love to have you back.
Cool, man. All right, thank you.
Well, that's about all the time we've got for the show today. I want to thank my special guest, Blayne Weaver. This is Douglas Coleman saying goodbye. To the